So you determine you need to close. How do you know what the right close is? When should you go for a number? When should you go for an instant date? When should you try and take the girl straight home? When should you try and have sex with the girl? Right? How do you know what the best close to go for is? Well, generally what I would say is this. Go for the highest level of close possible first, and then back off from there. So there's this phrase in sales, they say don't prejudge customers, as in like don't prejudge customers as though they won't buy. Like a lot of like, oh, he doesn't have enough money, he won't buy. Don't prejudge girls as, oh, you know, she would never go home with me. Or, oh no, you have to like, I have to get her number and work on her for weeks. Or she's too busy. Don't prejudge her. If you're going to prejudge her as guilty of being in love with you. Prejudge her as guilty of being very closable. Because it's usually better to go for the bigger close and then back off. Now, the way that you can do that is by closing softly and closing gradually. Again, this closing sequence. So you're not going to just suddenly be like, you know, after you've talked to a girl for 2 minutes, be like, hey, you want to come back to my place? That's way too fast, right? That's way too fast, and that actually is going to be negative for the interaction. So if the only way you know how to close is by going straight for the jugular, yeah, that's when you do want to close small because, you know, otherwise you're going to fuck it up. But if you know how to close in sequence, like, hey, are you adventurous? How do you feel about like spontaneous romantic adventures with cute boys? Okay, da-da-da-da-da. All right, look, there's one place I know I can take you real fast. I can't stay long, but let's go, right? Then you just invited her home, right? But you invited her home a lot more subtly and with a lot more buy-in along the way, so you're a lot more likely to get a yes. So my particular philosophy is you want to close as big as possible. You want to try and like close all the way, but you're just seeding it. And understand that just because you're trying to close all the way doesn't mean you have to close all the way right now. So even if you are trying to close all the way home, that doesn't necessarily mean the first stop has to be home, right? You can go with a stop that's halfway. Like, for example, if there's a bar near your house, instead of closing her to go like, hey, let's go home, you can definitely do an intermediate step. Hey, I know this great place. They like have the best cocktails. Let's go check it out real fast. Go there, and then second step is home. But you want to have in mind it going all the way first. You don't want to have in mind that like my goal for this interaction is to get a phone number, because you're going to get a lot of phone numbers that way that will actually be losses. Phone numbers where you could have taken the girl on an instant date. Phone numbers where you could have taken the girl home with you. Phone numbers where you could have had sex, could have started a relationship. Okay, so it's as much as like it's nice to get a series of successes. It's nice to have like, oh, I feel good, I got a phone number. So many guys get phone numbers in situations where they could have gotten so much more. So take the assumption that it is possible in every case to go all the way, and then if you find out otherwise, you're going to back it off. Now, what would tell you otherwise? Well, things that would tell you otherwise, one of the biggest ones is logistics, right? If you meet the girl, say it's like day game, you meet the girl and she's running to work and she's going to be late and she has a major major evaluation where she's going to be determined whether she gets to keep her job or not, she's probably not ditching that evaluation to come with you. It's probably not happening, right? Losing her job for you after a few minutes of interaction is pretty unlikely. That's a situation you probably just want to get a phone number, right? Or let's say that you're out at a bar and she's with her friend and her friend is like trash drunk to the point that it'd be unsafe for her to leave her friend alone and she really needs to get her home. Well, that's a situation where you're probably not pulling her to your place. You may be able to tag along and go home with both of them and wait it out. You may be able to do that, or you may be able to get a number and follow up with her later. But certain closes are probably off the table in certain scenarios, is what I'm saying. So you want to evaluate the situation, you want to evaluate the logistics, and that's going to tell you a lot about how you can close. To a lesser extent, you do want to evaluate how on it is. So if you have like a very brief time period, and it doesn't seem, it doesn't seem very on in that time period, then you have the choice, maybe I'm going to commit, like say early in the night, or say in the night, right? You're talking to a girl, it's going well, her friends come by and so they're going to drag her away. There's a chance that you could tag along with the friends, and there's a chance that you could, wait it out and deal with all the friends and have things work out at the end of the night, but you barely know the girl, you don't have a lot of history, it's kind of a low percentage thing. In that situation, you might just say my expected value, the expected result of this interaction versus my expected result if I was just going to go talk to a new girl, it's probably just as high or higher to go talk to a new girl. In that case, taking the number might be the best result, not because it's the best for that interaction, but because it's the best for your overall night, or it's the best for like kind of your life plan. So that's another factor. The other factor is it's her time and her restriction, but it's also your time and your restriction and kind of risk versus reward. So in those kind of cases, you might want to bounce. Now, that said, in that same exact situation, if that girl was a Victoria's Secret model and a rocket scientist and your ideal girl and had everything in common with you and you're like, this is my absolute 10, in that case, you might actually want to push through and you might want to wait it out and just do the best you can. So a lot of that does come down to priorities as well. But what I'm saying is the set in a vacuum, the set by itself, you want to push it as far as you can and go for the biggest close possible. And then beyond that, you want to look for logistical factors that are stopping you, time factors that are stopping you, and then you want to make an intelligent decision of is this set worth the time and energy it's going to take versus going and doing other approaches or versus going and spending time on my business or in other things in my life. So that's kind of the evaluative process. But in general, most guys are way too quick to settle for a number. Most guys are way too quick to settle for something that feels like a victory rather than something that has the highest percentage of actually getting them to sex or getting them to a relationship. Okay, so I want you to play to win as opposed to play for the little short victory or playing to feel good.